Welcome to the Manning Up on Real Estate podcast. This is the podcast where we will have real talk on what is happening in the local market of Greater Vancouver. Here we'll discuss the news, strategies, and interviews to help you man up on your real estate career. I'm your host, Cameron Manning. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Manning Up on Real Estate podcast. We are here today again with our final episode in the Corona Chronicles. That is 6 weeks of tips, tricks, and ways that you can take advantage of the coming recession, take advantage of all the stuff that's happening during Corona so you come out of it stronger, so you come out of it ready and prepped to grow your portfolio, grow your skills, and grow your knowledge. And today, being our last episode, I've got a really exciting guest here. This is one of the co-founders and managing partners of the Real Estate Center Canada, all the way out of Toronto. Their team does over 650 transactions annually, and they've been in the top 1% of realtors in Canada. They've got a top performing team with Royal LePage, and we've got the digital and video maverick, Jas Takhar, here on the podcast. Jas, welcome to the podcast.
Wow. Thank you so much, Cameron. I appreciate the kind words, means a lot. And you're leaving me right till the end. So I'm going to make sure I bring the straight goods and not let your viewers and listeners down, man. But thank you for having me.
Awesome. I appreciate it. And, I think timing wise, it comes out perfect because we are slowly starting to see things ramping back up in the economy. We're seeing a lot of the provinces have given their what do they call them, the restart plans and everything like that. So I think now more than ever, bringing in top producers that will help guide investors on the smart moves to take, whether they're in markets like Toronto, like yourself, or in Vancouver. I think across Canada, preparing yourself for the upcoming opportunities is key.
Yeah, look, I think there's actually compelling buying opportunities as we sit right now, before even the reopening, the official reopening, or the phases in Ontario right now. We're not actually even in the first phase of reopening. It's a 5-phase plan, and I think it's going to be coming up right after a Victoria Day long weekend. And so I've seen, in my team and my clients, investors have seen some very compelling buying opportunities, actually like right into the second, third week of the pandemic. But I always like to preface any investor tips by saying that you got to look at your own portfolio. You got to look at your own finances to make sure that investing in real estate is right for you. Obviously, myself and you and your team think that real estate investing is the best way to invest.
Yeah.
However, it might not be right for you at any certain time, right?
Yep.
At any time. However, you want to look at your own finances and then look at the different types of investments that you can do in real estate.
Oh, absolutely. And there's so many different strategies out there. I mean, we've had people coming in on the podcast during this series. We're talking about private lending. So you can, a lot of people try to raise capital and get OPM. You could be the guy who's given the money. We've had people talking about Airbnb, just regular rentals and the opportunities. So many strategies. So I think you hit the nail on the head there when you talk about just figure out where you are financially right now and decide what that strategy is going to be.
I had people calling me like second, third week into the pandemic and saying, should I invest? I'm like, well, are you working? No, I'm not working right now. I was like, let's put the brakes on for a second.
Right.
Let's start talking about cutting expenses first. Let's look at those Netflix, Hulu's, and Disney, all that kind of stuff that adds up. And let's look at the cost of strawberries and bananas, maybe, because you don't need to go organic all of a sudden, right? So I mean, let's look at cutting expenses now.
Keep things strong at home.
Exactly. Keep that foundation strong, right?
Absolutely.
And then we can look at investing, because at the end of the day, trying to time the market. I mean, economists can't do that. People who've been doing this for 50 years, right?
It's crystal ball territory.
Exactly. To me, it always comes about putting time in the market. And so if you buy today, you buy next month or a year from now, obviously the sooner you buy, the better, because you're going to be able to take advantage of what investing in real estate allows you to do, which is a passive market appreciation, paying down the mortgage. But even if you get in later, that's okay. You're still going to see values go up. They're going to come down a little, then they're going to go up, come back up. Like, it does that all the time. It goes up.
But at the end of the day, the long-term trend tends to be up. but
Real estate goes up and down, upwards.
Yeah. Up and down. Right? I like that. I'm going to take that if you don't mind. Up and down, upwards.
Yeah, man. Real estate goes up and down, upwards. And here's the thing, right? Kind of going back to how we started, like knowing if real estate investing is good for you. If you're afraid of the fact that it goes up and down, upwards, don't do it.
Yeah.
Period. End of story. Don't do it. It's almost similar to playing like a goalie in hockey. If you're afraid of the puck hitting you, don't be a goalie. Don't be a goalie. Exactly. You know what I mean? It's going to hit you a lot of times.
You can't duck that.
Exactly. But the pads, the jockstrap, the helmet, the neck guard, that is your all-star team. And that's getting in touch with Cameron. That's getting in touch with other real estate savvy investors right across the country. That also includes your finance person.
Yeah.
You know, and that
brokers, your
brokers,
home inspectors,
your home inspectors, your contractors. Like I'm taking it back to basics, but I know that some people who are watching or listening are like, "Ugh, I'm scared to do all that." It's okay. Millions of others have done it before you. Just do it the right way, and the right way is really putting a team together.
Putting the team together and getting that strong foundation exactly where you're at, right? So not going out writing that offer right away, finding out you don't qualify, right? Do the legwork in it. And right now's the perfect time because, again, you're at home. You might not be working. Your files are all there. Clean up the files, get it organized, get it to your broker, and then you know exactly what you have available to you when the time comes.
And what I'm noticing is the people on your team, they're also available a little bit more than they were in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For myself, for example, in Greater Toronto area, for all your listeners and viewers that are not from this city, that our traffic is quite bad in the morning and in the afternoon. So
Vancouver's no better.
Okay, so hour and a half to get in, Cameron, an hour and a half to get back. So I just bought 3 hours of my life back. Right
totally.
Now, I found other ways to obviously plug my time, but I'm able to take an extra couple of calls every single day now. And so if you're sitting at home, now's the time to call the lawyer, call the mortgage person, call the real estate person, call the accountant. You know, probably I've been doing this for 15 years. And I think when it comes to investing in real estate, I always get the question around accounting, should I incorporate, should I not? You get it as well, I know.
All the time.
And I always say, well, I'm not a tax accountant. I don't know your taxes. Get in touch with the accountant. And then it's so tough. It takes another couple of weeks just to get started. Call them now. They have a little bit more time, and you probably have a little bit more time.
And not only that, I mean, you think about it, there were so many changes that have been made that the government put into place, such as allowing you to do your taxes later. So the accountants, a lot of people probably took advantage of that. The accountants have time. They're not under the gun here in April now. So yeah, you could have those conversations, and they won't say, listen, it's tax time. I can't take your call right now for that. They'll probably be like, yeah, you know, I got a few people doing their taxes, but most are going to wait because that's the nature of human nature.
Exactly. And if you look at the real estate lawyers, okay, in Ontario, sales have the volume of sales, not the values, and we can talk about that as well. But the volume of sales have gone down significantly, 67% at the time of this recording. Okay, we're call it almost mid-May. 67% volume of sales. That means that all the people on the team are actually transacting less. Most people, right? There's obviously teams and lawyers that outperform the market, but most lawyers are actually doing less volume. Why is that important? Why is that important to know? Because see, in real estate, if you're buying your first home, second home, or you're a seller, most buyers and sellers, the mistake that they make, they always get the real estate lawyer involved at the 11th hour.
Yeah, very end. Subjects are removed. They're closing in a week.
And they call the lawyer. They send the documents to the lawyer. Oh my God. Okay, I'm closing on this deal, and the lawyer's looking at it like, you're giving this to me now. They have to rush the closing. Right. And so here's the cool thing. Get in touch. If you got in touch with the rest of the team, get whatever documents you're getting from your mortgage person, from your account. Have your lawyer look at that. And with real estate, a lawyer doesn't charge you every time you call them or email them. It's not like a corporate lawyer or a criminal lawyer. Exactly. It's a flat fee. You might as well make use of them.
Take advantage. You know you're in the middle of a transaction, or you're going to be in the middle. Get that ball rolling, and you get that advice. And then they can have that conversation once you've talked to your accountant, once you've talked to your lawyer. You know whether you should incorporate. You know, and you can get that all done in advance. And suddenly you're writing that offer, you're closing the deal, and all the ducks are in a row, and it's a smooth closing.
And when you go into, if you go into an offer where there's other real estate investors involved, because you have the ducks in order, you're that much more confident, and you understand the numbers. You'll actually get, most of the time you'll actually be able to put the deal together quicker and at a better price because you already have your ducks in order.
You know, everything's lined up, ready to rock and roll.
Exactly.
It literally comes down to what's the appraisal like and what's the inspection like. Let's get it done.
And that's it. I love it.
Yeah. Now I want to circle back to something that you kind of mentioned and we talked about briefly, but sales are down, right?
Yes.
Obviously. I mean, people are stuck at home. They're focusing on their health. They're focusing on their finances. They're not looking at properties, especially the general public. Maybe some of the investors are out there taking advantage. Awesome if you are. But this is something that we as realtors, we combat all the time. And that's sales are down, the properties are going to plunge, blah, blah, blah. News articles highlight that one aspect, right? And I'm sure you're seeing it. You said 67% in Toronto, you said?
Yeah, Greater Toronto area. Yeah.
Greater Toronto area. We were down in the GVRD over 53%, I believe it was. So significant drop in sales. The month prior, March, we were up 46% over last year. Right. So that was mostly done in the first beginning of the month because then we went in mid-March. But the media is going to take that one sales number, that high double digit, and they're going to blast that out there, creating fear and panic.
For sure. Right? Look, here's the thing. If it bleeds, it leads, right? The media's job is to sell papers. And obviously in today's day and age, to sell clicks for people to click. It's our job, not only Jas's and Cameron's as real estate people. I mean, in life, it's our job to decipher what we allow to go into our brains. Absolutely. And so, like, the media will always talk about whatever is going to sell more papers and or clicks. What sells? Oh my God.
Negative 67 sounds better than, prices went up 0.2%.
Exactly. I always say that if you walk by a newspaper stand and it says it's going to be a beautiful sunny day tomorrow, no one even picks up that paper. No. They might give it a little glance. The second it says there's a storm coming, we go purchase that paper to go look at. You know what I mean? Like what's happening, when's it going to come, and all that kind of stuff. So negative will always sell. Get prepared. Exactly. What concerns me when they have headlines as 67% sales are down, general public says, oh my God, my values just went down 67%.
The market's tanking.
Price. No, it didn't. Let's look at the stats. So in that exact same time period that I'm talking about in the Greater Toronto area, 67% sales went down, values actually flattened. And I hate to use that word. It's probably the overused word of 2020. But the curve was flattened in the real estate market. Values didn't go up, didn't go down. It actually went up approximately $980 to be exact. Okay, so what we're seeing is, and I'm actually proud. I'm very proud of Canada as a whole. Okay, where we actually stayed home.
Yeah.
People listened and stayed home.
Exactly.
Population of 33 million people, not everyone, but like obviously aside from the essential workers, and thank you for them, most people stayed home. And so that's why you weren't having as many sales happening. Sellers said, I'm not going to put my home on the market. I don't want people coming around. And
I
buyers
don't want someone who's sick to come to my house.
Exactly. And buyers obviously said the same thing. Yep. What would concern us as myself and Cameron, and you'll attest to this, as we watch the market, if a seller said, you know what, I still want to put my home on the market. In fact, I'm scared. I lost my job and now I need to sell. When you start to see listings go up significantly and not the same amount of buyers in the market, that's when values are going to drop, right?
Absolutely. And not only that, if you've got the scared sellers, they're likely undercutting their prices too because they're wanting out fast.
And that's why the values are going to come down, right? And the values will drop. And so what we like to look at is months of inventory.
Yeah.
So if nobody were to list another home as of today, how much inventory do we have left? So right now in Toronto, it's 2 months to be exact. But that also tells us something else. That factor, that market indicator of months of inventory, and so we're sitting at 2 months, tells us, are we in a buyer's market, seller's market, balanced market? And anything from 0 to 3 months is considered a seller's market. A balanced market is 4 to 6 months, and 6 months and above is a buyer's market. So we're still, and in Greater Toronto area, we've been sitting in a seller's market, safe to say, for the last 4 or 5 years. There's been a month or two that swayed the other way, but not really, not in any significant way. And so we're still in a seller's market. Values have flattened, and yes, volume, the amount of sales have gone down, but there was a reason for it, because people were staying home.
There's a legitimate reason. It's not necessarily that over time the government has changed a bunch of laws and suddenly it's impacting real estate, or a global economic crisis has happened. It's a health pandemic, and people literally just wanted to protect themselves.
Yeah, and governments right around the world, but specifically in Canada, right? We press the button of pause.
Mm-hmm.
It was done deliberately, and for good measure. Like, it should have been, in terms of how long and all that. We can argue till the cows come home, right? I mean, everybody has their differing opinions, but it definitely should have been paused for a bit, just to see what the landscape is like. What's happening here? How do we not put a burden on our healthcare system? And they've done a phenomenal job. Like, I can't say it enough how much our frontline workers and healthcare workers have done, right?
Well, and the thing is, this is never to this scale ever been done. You know what I mean? So we don't have a plan in place. So I agree. The government, the frontline workers, it was all run and gun, get what you can done now, and we have to figure it out as we go. And I think they did a great job responding to it as quickly as they did.
Yeah, so I think most of your listeners, well, I know most of your clients anyways, are in Vancouver. And I always like to speak to people in Vancouver, yourself and Kelly, because it acts very similar to Toronto, right?
Very similar,
It's the two places in the country, that people from outside of our country like to come to, right? It's the big cities, yada yada. And so in terms of our numbers are kind of similar generally as well. And so what I was always looking at is, what's immigration going to be like, right? To kind of forecast to forecast what's going to happen in terms of our numbers. I like to think that Canada, again, is going to be the place that people are going to want to come even more, because the world has seen how we take care of our people.
Absolutely.
I never go on political rants. I always laugh with people when I go on podcasts and do interviews on the media and say, listen, I'll talk about anything except for politics and religion. Those are the two things I won't talk about. So the one thing, though, that you cannot dispute is how quickly the government acted to get money into the hands of our people.
Absolutely.
And you can again dispute, okay, $2,000 a month, it wasn't a lot, but it was something. It was something.
Any other recession we look at in the last 40 years, never before has there been some sort of a program like that.
Definitely not a stimulus program of this measure. In fact, in 2009, late 2008, 2009, with the financial crisis that happened and the recession that hit, the world actually, the world looked at our banking system at that time and said, how did you guys do it? Well, we're Canadians. We're conservative in nature.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason we say sorry for things that we shouldn't be saying sorry for. Like, I'm born and raised here, so I can, and we can say this, right?
Exactly.
But the world said, how did you guys get through this? We showed them, and we're very conservative. You can't, just because you walk, talk, and chew gum at the same time, you don't get a mortgage here. It's different than anywhere else in the world, specifically comparing us to the States, right?
Exactly. Yeah. There's no breathing on a piece of glass, and here's your $500,000 loan. and
sorry, your home's worth $500, but you probably need some extra TVs and some new flooring. Let's give you an extra 20 G's for that.
Exactly. And then you got to pay it back in 10% when we jack up the rates.
Exactly. Here in Canada, our lenders, you have a good job, good paying job, phenomenal credit. You have great history of payment. They're still putting you through the ringer. Okay.
Yep,
and so when somebody's going through it, it's tough. You're like, oh my God, like I have a great job and I pay and all that. But it actually works in our favor.
Yes,
there's our power of sales numbers are very, very low. Now, I actually think, going back to immigration, I think the world's going to look at us again and say, look, that's the place to go. That's the place to go. I can walk into a hospital. They're not going to ask me for insurance. I just need to show them a card. And I get taken care of. And if something hits the fan like this did with COVID and something else comes around, then the first thing that the government's going to look to do is take care of me as an immigrant. And in GTA, we were expecting 2 million people in the next 10 years. So approximately 200,000 people every single year. When this started, my concern was like, okay, I like to look at real estate and I like to look at numbers in a 10-year period anyways. I was like, okay, it's not going to happen in 10 years. It's probably going to take 11 to 12 years now. not a big deal. It's an extra 2 years, not a. But now, Cameron, sitting here now, I'm like, it's going to happen in 8 years.
Oh, for sure, because
in 8.5 years.
That perspective that people have of Canada now, they're going to be like, why am I here in whatever country they're in? Why don't I go take advantage of that? If I can get into Canada, then I'm protected. Right?
For sure. It's like we sometimes, because we're in it and we live here, all of us, we say, we talk about all the bad stuff here. But I can tell you, my parents were immigrants. They came into Canada from India in 1973. It was the dream. Like you and I maybe dream of having the biggest podcasts in the world and do a lot of, help as many buyers, sellers, and investors. And those are our goals and our aspirations. Immigrants' goals and aspirations are come to our country. Come to our country. Canada is still one of the top countries to live in. I'm going to say it's the best country, period. I'm just going to say it.
I'm not going to argue.
You know what I mean? Like, I truly believe it. And the reason that's important is because that's what drives real estate. Is supply and demand. So now
basic economics.
Basic economics, right? Just basic economics. We have a lot of demand. In Toronto, we're really on a real estate island, I should say, because the south part of our city, there's a lake, can't build there. On the northern part, there's back in 2005, 15 years ago, the government came out with a legislation known as the Greenbelt legislation, which does not allow developers to build on. They're preserving forestry and obviously we need the trees. So you can't dispute that to expand it or lift the restriction. And so builders can no longer build out subdivisions. And so you hardly really see any single family homes being built in our city. We have a lot of cranes going up. I think we're number 2 in the world. Singapore is the only country that outpaces Canada in new construction of condos. And the reason is because we can't build out subdivisions. We need to build out condos. And it all comes back to supply and demand.
Well, and we mentioned how Vancouver and Toronto are very similar in a lot of ways. And that same thing, we've got ocean surrounding us. We've got our neighbors to the south, so we're stuck by a border. And then we got mountains. So as we head into our valley, we also have, similar to your Greenbelt, we have what's called the Agricultural Land Reserve, which means we cannot develop because they want to maintain that for agriculture. Right? So we're in the same situation. We don't see a lot of, certain pockets in the suburbs, we see subdivisions, but Vancouver itself is going one direction, and that's up in a lot of ways. So it's very similar. You go anywhere downtown, you go into Burnaby, cranes everywhere. Same, and again, mirroring a lot of what Toronto does as well. That very same reason.
And as a real estate investor, that's what you want to look at. You want to look at the fundamentals. You want to look at, okay, so what's happening? Where are the jobs? Where are there a lot of people coming in, right? And so location, and you could go macro location, Toronto, Vancouver. Then within Toronto, there's certain areas and pockets that you want to make sure that you invest in, because is it close to transit? What amenities are close by? Where, as an investor, where are my customers going to be? And your customers are your tenants. And so you want to, because you got to treat this as a business. And so you want to make sure that your customers, your tenants you're casting the biggest net that you possibly can for when they leave. So your vacancy rates stay very, very low. In Toronto, actually, our vacancy rate pre-COVID was less than 1%. We were seeing multiple offers on rentals.
We were very similar. I think we had just gotten slightly over 1%. But again, further out into the suburbs, it was still below, in some cases below 0.7. I mean, it's you put your property up on the market for rent, and you've got a tenant the next day kind of thing. It was crazy at one point. I remember I bought a house out in the burbs, and I actually did an open house unintentionally. I mean, a realtor, next thing you know, I'm just booking all these showings. And I had 30 people come to a rental, to take a look at it. And I mean, it was incredible at the time. And our vacancies haven't grown that much since then. Right. But I had people writing, I think I was asking $900 for a 1-bedroom, and people were saying, I'll pay $1,000.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, great.
I'll take
How's your credit?
Exactly.
How's your references like?
For sure. Right. And so you want to make sure that you go through the due diligence when you're looking at a tenant, credit, past, like what's their references like, check their social medias. It's that simple as that. Like,
Google.
Not that in Ontario anyways, you can't say no to somebody who has a pet, but if you don't want to have a pet, in your place before you rent it out. And if a tenant says, well, I don't have any pets, but then you go on their Instagram profile and they have pictures with dogs and cats, chances are it's one of theirs, right?
Yeah.
So I mean,
people like showing off their animals.
100%, right? Do your due diligence,
Yeah.
definitely on your tenants, and be prepared, and understand, right? As I mentioned, that it's like a business. If you look at Shoppers Drug Mart, for example, when they open up a new store, they already start to they understand there's going to be external theft and there's going to be internal theft.
Yeah.
They try to do their best with protecting of, you have the the alarms and the tags and all that kind of, and all the detectors and stuff. Yeah. But they still know people are gonna figure it out. Okay, yeah. They know because they're a business. They run their operation like they should, like a business. Yeah. And so as a tenant, what you need to do, as an investor, you need to know that things happen in tenants' lives, right? And they might not be able to pay a month's rent, and so your bank doesn't care. They're not going to care. They're going to want their mortgage payment, have a surplus, put some money away, right? And so, I like the amount of horror stories I hear from landlords, and it's always because, in my opinion, it's always their fault. They didn't do any checks on the tenants.
9 times out of 10, we've got a monthly group that I've mentioned here on the podcast that we run for investors. And we always have a recurring segment where we tell, basically tales that, landlords have gone through. And we actually have a company that we work with that does tenant inspections, and they help with evictions, and they take you through the court process and help you get to the bailiffs. And the stories this guy has are incredible. And it's always the common theme. At the end of his story, it's they should have done this, screened the tenant properly the first time, had their documents or their leases, properly written out, and done their quarterly checks. Like, those 3 things avoid all of his stories, and every month it's a new story. It's crazy.
Well, yeah, I mean, investors want to get in and say that they have an income property, but they don't want to put the work in, right? And then look, I truly believe it's the landlord's fault half the time. Just from a mindset perspective, Cameron, I mean, landlords will believe like they're up here because they're the landlord and they're the owner, and the tenant's beneath them. Yeah. That mindset needs to change, because what I advise my clients is, remember, guys, the tenants pay you minimum $10,000, $15,000 a year just in principal recapture, just in paying down your mortgage. Call it $8,000 to $10,000. Yeah. And then because the market's appreciating on its own, just for giggles, let's call it 5%. You bought your $500,000 condo or home, you're looking at another $25,000. So that's $35,000. If I was giving you $35,000, be a little nice to me. Take care of me. Give me a bottle of wine and during the holiday season.
And that, I think that I don't want to say arrogance, but that air of I'm up here and tenants are way down here. I think that gets out too much to the media. And then you have, whether it's politicians, whether it's media, landlords are rich, don't pay them rent during crises and things like that. We're not rich by any means, and that could definitely hurt us if we don't have that rent. We got to pay that mortgage out. But that when people are out there and like, I'm a landlord and tenants, whatever, that gets out into the public and that gets out to the media, and that's why we get chastised.
For sure. Well, people do tend to people forget that landlords are providing housing. They're providing housing in affordable. So I get sometimes it's not affordable, like what you might think is affordable, but living in downtown Toronto, not everyone should be able to afford it. Just like they can't afford Manhattan, and just like they can't afford Hong Kong and London and Paris. There's no difference. Vancouver, it's the same thing. You drive till you qualify, right? And so because if you can't afford the downtown urban areas, there's a reason there's subdivisions. You go out a little bit further, right? Exactly. And so when you start to look at outside areas, then that's what you're going to have to live. You're going to have to live a little bit further from work. That's just normal. That's right across the world. We hear it here in
every city in Canada, every city in US, across the world. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Now, can more be done in terms of affordable housing? Yes, that definitely more can be done. But I like to speak to people who are complaining about it and saying, A, what are you doing about it? Because you can
right.
Or B, hey, you got to start doing maybe a side hustle. You got to figure this out, right? You got to earn more income. Or I actually want to see your bank statements. Send me your bank statements. Let me see
Right.
where you spend money. Because are you spending $2 on a, $2 to $4 on a coffee every single day? Right.
Yeah.
That stuff starts to add up. So I like to look at
Absolutely.
people's expenses as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe you could afford, but you're, paying it elsewhere. And
I always call it buying dumb shit, if I might say it. Like, it's just people
yeah.
buying things that they don't need to impress people that they don't even care about.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so just to keep things rolling here, we've talked a lot about the market. We've talked about tenants. We've talked about landlords. Now, there's two overarching things where I kind of want to take it back a little bit to the whole sales and inventory thing, and talk about strategies for both buyers and sellers that are in the market right now. We'll start with buyers. Now, what's one piece of advice that you're giving to buyers to really, like, what is the timing right now for buyers to beat the rush right now? What are you saying right now to your clients?
Well, in terms of buying, if you have to buy, I would say we're seeing deals in certain pockets of the Greater Toronto area, and I think that's gonna last for another. I think it's safe to say for another 60 days or so, 45 actually to about 60 days.
I'd agree for Vancouver, yeah.
Right, before the rush really starts to happen, because there's some real pent up demand right now. From an investor's perspective, who are purchasers / buyers, but also just people who need a home. They just need a home, and the sales that happen in April of last month, we were looking at a little over 2,800 homes that sold. Homes and condos that sold in the Greater Toronto area. Not a big number to what we're compared. Down from 67%, actually, down by 67%. But those were people that had to buy. They weren't really. There wasn't many that were just looking for a deal. They just needed a home, because they're
motivated to personal circumstances.
Exactly. We had so much. So we had our supply and demand issue has been going on for such a long time that people sold their homes pre-COVID, pre-lockdown, that they needed to still purchase. So from a buying perspective, I'm saying you got about another 45 to 60 days. From a selling perspective, unless you have to sell, I wouldn't sell right now. I'd still hold off. Why? In my opinion, because you're still not going to cast as big of a net as you possibly can.
Right.
When it comes to buyers, if you hold off a little bit longer, almost the similar time. It's why I said to buyers 45 to 60 days. I think the rush is going to happen for sellers in that 60 day kind of period.
So helping keep that inventory down, essentially, by not putting your property on the market. When that flood happens, you get your property on the market and you catch that, and you might then end up with those multiple buyers, because there's such flood of buyers to the market at that point.
And the other term we like to talk about in real estate, and really economics, obviously, in general, is consumer confidence. Right now, consumer confidence is not as high as it can be. There's this feeling, though, and I think you're probably feeling the same thing, Cameron, in Vancouver, but it's coming back.
It's coming back. The buyers are calling, the sellers are calling, and they're like, what's going on? What's going on? They didn't do that 3 weeks ago.
The umbrella, so my team, the team that I founded is REC Canada, but that's under Royal LePage. And so Royal LePage's website, pre-COVID, gets about 4 million hits a month, First 2-3 weeks of COVID, it went down by 50%. So let's call it went down to 2 million.
Cut it in half.
Cut it in half. Last week, went back up to 4 million.
So you're starting to see that consumer confidence coming. People are looking, and they're getting comfortable too. I think there was a phase of, this is new, I don't know what it is, and then they got comfortable being at home, and they said, okay, now I can start doing what I need to do.
And so two parts to that. Like, one was like, why did the numbers go up? Because the conversation started. Honey, what do you think? You should, let's start looking now, and maybe we can move into that area. I wonder what that area goes for. In fact, my wife today was just like, I wonder what our home is worth. Can you give me some recent stats? And I was like, okay, I'll look at, she asked me, you know what I mean? So in my own home, these conversations. The second thing in terms of consumer confidence is the fact that there's just more. There was pent up demand. There was already pent up demand. We started to feel that there was a lot of people starting to look again, and that's why I think there's going to be that rush at the end of that 60-day period.
And I think part of it too that I see is that people, like, our interest rates were dropped during this, right? I mean, I've got clients. I was on the phone this morning with a client who told me he got 1.89% on a refinance. Like,
Wow.
right? So
Wow.
interest rates are ridiculously low. And when buyers get that confidence in the market, they're going to want to take advantage of those interest rates before they start seeing it go up. So again, there's going to be that surge, that buyer confidence in the fact they want to be in the market's going to grow. But then there's going to be that also initial rush of, I better get it done now, because who knows what interest rates are going to be like 3 months from now. Right.
And here's the other thing, right? For somebody who's maybe a newer investor or newer purchaser, like, what we see for a 5-year fixed is about 2.45. That's on a 5-year fix. What Cameron, you're talking about a variable. I take it at one. Yeah. Okay. So 5-year fix at 2.45. And if you're a new purchaser or a new investor and you hear it go up to 2.75, don't freak out.
No.
Don't freak out, because let me tell you something, that I bought my first home in 2006 and I paid 4.5%, and I thought I robbed the bank.
Yeah.
We were throwing parties. We were like 4.5% for a 5-year fix. Get it quick before they change their mind. And so if it goes from
2.89, and I was the same way, you know?
Right. And so even if it goes slightly up, it's not like these are historically low rates. We've never seen this before.
And it's been like this for well over 10 years at this point.
Yes, I agree. It's been in that, low, high 2s, low 3s, kind of mid 3s or so to say. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. All right. So I just want to flip the script a little bit, because I got to say, one thing I admire watching you online, social media, and this is, I guess, more geared towards maybe the realtors or the real estate professionals, but as investors, now's the time to kind of brand yourself online. If you're looking to raise capital, you are, for the most part, like I called you a digital maverick out there. You guys are putting out a ton of content. So what is something that you would recommend someone to get started just getting more content online? Because really what COVID's created is a lot of, reason to start using these tools online, right? I mean, we're doing digital open houses now. We're doing all these digital things. What's some simple tips that you would give to somebody who doesn't do a lot of online digital stuff, to say, well, here's what you got to do to start increasing for your own brand and everything like that?
First things first, just realize that you have to do it. Why? Because if you need the attention of anybody, then you need to speak to the world. Otherwise, they'll never know who you are. It's like almost like having the best billboard in town, but it's in the Yukon for your service in Vancouver or in Toronto.
No one's driving by it.
Nobody's driving by it. Nobody's ever going to see it. So yes, you are an amazing realtor. Even if you're an investor, guys, if you think you don't need to build up a personal brand, I'm here to tell you that you're wrong. Why? Because as an investor, there's going to come a point in time where even the banks are going to make it a little tough on getting money. So how do you get money? You do joint ventures. How do you do joint ventures? You need to speak to people. And they want, whoever you're speaking to who's going to lend you money privately or do a joint venture with you, wants to know you're credible. And building personal brand is just a thing. Yes. And I appreciate, again, the kind words, Cameron, but personal brand really, and for anyone who's older than 25, I think, or 30, let's just say, will know that it's just a fancy word for reputation. Yeah. That's all it is. What's your reputation? It could be digital. It could be real in real life. My number one tip, obviously after knowing that you need to do it, is just be self-aware in what you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
I love cameras. Okay. The one thing that I'm upset about COVID, that I don't have 7 of them around me right now. I'm working off the one that I have in front of me. I like to have a lot of people around me, have the cameras on, have the lights on. It's all kind of slowed down for me. Okay. Totally. That's me. Okay. And then after that, I like the audio. I love the fact that you have, the first thing that caught my eye was your mic. Why? Because I like that. I like to speak. But I'm okay with the stutter that I might have, or sometimes I like to move my hands around a lot.
Creates authenticity.
Yeah, right. Like, and so it's just me. So I want people to be self-aware with what they're comfortable with. What medium are you comfortable producing content with? Because we learn visually, or we listen to like audio, or we like to read. And so there's still people like, well, who reads? Well, there's a website called medium.com. There's 150 million users a month. 150 million users a month. It's the YouTube for bloggers. Okay. And so that's probably the first thing. I don't think you need to do video. A lot of people that are like teaching video courses and all that kind of stuff. Why? Because it's an easy sell for them. They're trying to sell to you. I think you just need to be comfortable in which medium are you going to do what comes naturally for you, and then start there.
Pick a platform, pick a medium, what you're going to do, written, visual, video, and just do it, right?
And just
be
do
consistent,
it.
right? Just be out there every day doing it.
I think you need to look. I don't know if I said it off or on here. I was saying I do about 20 to 25 pieces of content a day on all platforms. But I'm obsessed. I love this. This is my game. This is what I like to do.
I know you link up to the Gary Vee model a lot in that regards, right?
Identical. It's actually, I believe in imitation, assimilation, and then innovation. And so I'm in, like, I got an opportunity to meet him. He was on my podcast. And I literally took his blueprint, and it's on Google, like Google Gary Vee content model. And the one thing that I just did different, in all honesty, Cameron, is I actually used it. I use it to a T. It's actually printed in color, in binders, 7 copies around my office. I don't have an operationals manual really for my company. That is the operationals manual when you join me. And that's it. That's how I hire people. I'm like, here, read this. You have 2-3 days. Come back and make sure that you're comfortable with what I'm looking for, because understand this is what we're going to be doing. We react really quickly, but we're very patient on results. So don't worry. You're going to get 1 view on your video. You're going to get 2 people who listen to your podcast. You're going to get a half a person who reads your medium, for example.
Exactly.
But the momentum will happen. It will take over. It's been 1.5 to 2 years for me now, and I probably get about 4 to 5 requests a day, either for me to be on someone's podcast, and I thank you so much for having me on here, Cameron.
Absolutely.
Or a client saying, "Hey, Jas, can we look at buying, selling, and investing?" That's 4 to 5 times a day. That's 4 to 5 times a day. And to the realtors out there, guys, it's just made the job easier. Why? Because now people only meet me at my office, the ones that want to talk to me. Like, they know who they're about to deal with. And so if they actually took the time to meet me at the office, that means if they heard me, read me, because I do all 3 mediums. If they read something I wrote or saw me on video or heard my podcast, we're connected already. They know
they've got a sense of who you are already.
Exactly. They know that they're going to get somebody who's very energetic and very passionate, and that rubs people the wrong way. Some people are like, I don't want to touch this guy. Like, he's weird.
Too loud. He's too whatever. Yeah.
He's out there. He's too out there. Great. I'm not wasting your time. You're not wasting my time. Exactly. I don't wear a suit, right? I'm not comfortable in that fittings or sitting, so to speak. And so I wear a t-shirt, it's branded, and sometimes I wear a sweater. And if you're okay with that as a client, great, we'll get to the next step. And if not, it's okay. Like, life's too short for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, and the big thing too is, I think the biggest misconception is people don't want to, because you talked about doing 20 to 25 pieces of content a day, and yet people are like, I don't want to put too much out there because I'll annoy people. And my coach, his name's Carlos Gill. He just wrote a book called The End of Marketing, and he talks a whole lot on it's a noisy digital ocean. So your content is going to get buried regardless. The minute you post it, you'll get your initial few likes or whatever, and it's gone. And half of your people that you're trying to target aren't going to see it. So that's why you need to be active constantly to get it out.
And that's just proof. What you're saying is 100% proof. And sorry, the gentleman's name again was?
His name was Carlos Gill. So he's actually been on this podcast twice now.
Awesome.
Great book. It's called The End of Marketing. I do recommend checking it out there. But he talks about how to just stand out in that digital noisy ocean. And a lot of it's the Gary Vee stuff.
And the reason I was saying that, Cameron, that it's just proof is that the algorithm on all these platforms does not allow you. You could post 20 a day, and your followers are only going to see certain things. That's how the algorithm works. Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and Twitter, all those things. They don't allow your someone else's feed to be flooded with you.
Exactly.
Because the algorithm's smarter than that. And so more is more. I know in the real estate world, as realtors, we like to tell our clients, our sellers, that less is more, declutter, and which is the right thing to do.
On that side.
On that side. On content production, more is more. More is more. Like, the goal is for me to get to 50 to 60, and I'm talking about ads and everything, and
Yeah.
a mixture organic and ads. But I'll get there slowly but surely. And look, people are gonna. I get it all the time. Jazz, yeah, you do 20 to 25. Yeah, but I started with one.
Yeah.
I started one a day consistently for
one
3 to 4
text,
months.
whatever.
Like that's just once a day. I was just
Yeah.
putting out one post a day, and then it started to snowball. Then people will say, "Well, Jazz, you have a full team." Yeah, but I started by myself.
Exactly. Yeah. I
Like,
mean, if you don't start, you're not going to get
yeah,
to that point.
like 100%. Like,
Sure.
don't worry about my team right now. Don't worry. And then I want to have a team, and then you pay these guys, and you sell real estate, so you make money there. Yeah, but so majority of my guys actually 80% of my staff, my core staff on the media side, all started as unpaid interns.
Yeah.
So like, there's no excuses.
There really isn't. I mean,
There is no excuses, or there will always be an excuse.
Yeah. And those people that have the excuse are just never going to do it, period. And you know what? So what next? Move on and focus on the ones who will.
And I was going to say, even as I was just speaking, like, I know that there's hundreds of thousands of people listening to this recording, and I'm just hoping 3 people heard me. That's it. Like 3 people said, I'm going to do this. Why? Because I was one of those. I was one of those people who just was like, I'm going to use this content model and I'm going to run with it, and I will not stop until I have done it all. And I'm in the process of that.
Building. Jas, I appreciate your time here, and I want to make sure you can get back to your day, obviously, and everyone else listening. This was like super, like I loved the energy of this. So I think you guys are in for a treat. If you guys if you're looking in Toronto, you're looking to see what's going on, check out Jas. What's the best way that they can get in touch with you?
Look, I truly believe that people like to, as I mentioned, consume content in different ways. And so the easiest way really is to go to jastakhar.ca. That's JASTAKHAR.ca, and you can choose the platform and choose the medium that you want to consume me. You might be tired of the good-looking face, you might be tired of the voice, and then you only want to read, or vice versa. Just you choose the platform.
All right, sounds good. And then the one other thing that I do on this podcast that just gives a little bit more extra value at the end here is a book recommendation. What book would you, either you're reading right now, you've read in the past, that you feel has been extremely impactful for you, that you feel that listeners of this podcast would enjoy and be able to incorporate into their life?
I'm going to give you 2, if you don't mind, Cameron, because they both changed. They changed the course of my life. One is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. He actually passed away not too long ago. And the second one is The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. Jack Canfield is the co-author of all the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, but then he went off and wrote his book. I think it's 64 or 65 success principles. I've read it 3 times, listened to it 5 times, just while in my car, and I always apply NET, which is no extra time. It takes you no extra time to listen to an audiobook while you're driving or taking your dog for a walk or on a treadmill. And so that was something that I did there. So it's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, and Success Principles by Jack Canfield.
Sounds good. And now more than ever, again, if you're stuck at home or if you're driving around groceries, get the audiobooks, grab a physical book if you can get it. Read these books, implement the practice. And now if you're building skills during this time as we come out of COVID, you're going to come out further ahead than those who literally put their feet up, called it a vacation, and turned on Netflix, right? Again, Jas, I appreciate you so much for coming on the podcast today. I'm looking forward to whenever we can get back out to Niagara Falls and have another summit. We can get in touch again. But yeah, keep in touch. And,
for sure, my man. Thank you so much for having me on. For more than that, thank you for what you're doing. You might not know, Cameron, but you're putting out positive information. You're being very optimistic, and we need that more than ever in the world right now. Is we need optimism, and I think there's a big difference between even being positive and optimistic. Right? Thank you for what you're doing, man, because it takes a lot to produce content, take time out of your busy day, and you're putting in all that effort. And to your viewers and listeners, like, follow him on other platforms as well, not just the podcast. So if you listen to to camera, get on the other social platforms, because it's just good, positive information.
I appreciate it. And if you guys are looking to connect with this podcast more, whether it's Twitter or Instagram, you can use the hashtag ManningUpRE to connect with me, ask your questions, let's connect. And if you're looking for more content, if you want to see more of the face, everything like that, or get more skills strategies, go over to youtube.com/Cameron Manning, and we're updating videos as often as we can there to give you guys more content. Again, Jas, thank you so much. We're going to close it out here. This is the final episode in our Corona Chronicles series, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget, if you really enjoyed this series, go drop us a rating over on iTunes. That obviously helps us do better and get this content out to more people. That's it for me today. That's it for Jas. Again, thank you so much, and we'll hopefully connect here again soon.
Thanks for having me.
Hey now, hey now, hey now, hey now, hey now. What you gonna